Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another day of our Summer Reading Club programming. And today we have a really neat and exciting activity and STEM challenge planned for you all where we'll be making paper airplanes, but not in the traditional sense. We'll be making these objects that fly using only a paper straw and some actual paper here. And I know it doesn't look like a paper airplane, and that's because it doesn't have wings, right? But that's a common misconception, something that isn't always true, because if you have an object that is aerodynamic, which means basically it's the science behind what makes objects fly, it can actually fly through the air no problem, as if it had wings and looked like an airplane, which is pretty neat. But we'll explain the science behind all of this activity and challenge a little bit later. So, to get started for today, what you'll need is a paper straw, and for me, I had just a bendy end at the edge. I know that's common with a lot of straws. If you do, just cut that off, because then you'll have a nice sturdy and straight straw just like this, and it won't bend as easily. You will also need some cardstock paper, or regular paper for that matter, but I would recommend cardstock because it's a little bit less bendy and it's a lot sturdier, so it won't bend through the air as much when it comes to your flying object. You will also want to have a ruler for measuring, a pencil, or any writing utensil for that matter. Grab scissors for cutting, and you can never go wrong with some tape or some glue. Now, what I'd recommend doing to get started, as with most challenges, is you maybe want to plan out what you would like to do and what you can imagine seeing with your actual flying object here. Now, one of the best parts about this challenge is it is super simple, super easy, super quick, using very few supplies. So this gives you a big opportunity to just experiment and see what works and what doesn't. Now, this is actually, as basic as it looks, this is my fourth design for the paper airplane, just because I found that this one worked the best compared to others that I've done. And it's pretty neat because you can really see and gauge what works and what doesn't after you make it, and then just throw it in the air to see if it actually flies or not. And the first couple of mine didn't. So it's a pretty neat idea to kind of see what flies and what doesn't, to help look a little bit closer into the science behind what makes objects fly. Now, as you saw with mine, I had the paper straw used as the body or the base of my flying object here. And I used circles out of my paper because I thought to myself, originally I imagined those Dyson fans that are circular, and I thought, I wonder, that must fly really nicely. So I created a tiny one and a larger one. Now, the different sizes, you can see up to you if using circles of different sizes works better or worse, or using less circles, more circles, completely up to you. But this is what I have for my design, and it flies really nicely. But I would recommend just basically experimenting with your cardstock paper here and cutting out as much or as little as you would like. See if using 4 circles works better, or if using only 1 circle might be the best design for you and your paper airplane. Completely up to you. But a little bit of the science behind what makes an object fly, or the aerodynamics. And I learned this in my grade 6 science class, and it was really neat. We made paper airplanes and we all flew them, all of my classmates and I, and it was so fun, and one of the units that I will forever remember, because we don't exactly get all of that in university. So, when it comes to the science behind a paper airplane or a flying object, you see thrust, drag, lift, and gravity. 4 different forces that help an object fly or keep it from flying. Now, first you have thrust, and this is what basically pushes your object forward. And in this case, I am applying the force, or the thrust, so I am the one pushing my airplane forward. Now, there is also drag, and what drag is it is anything that is resisting or pushing your airplane or flying object back as it's flying through the air. So in this case, our drag can be seen as air resistance as we are throwing it in the air. The air is pushing against it as it's flying, which is slowing our airplane down. Now you also have something called lift, and that is, in the name, the force that lifts your airplane or object up into the air. And that is where the circles come in handy here, because they are able to catch the air as they're flying through it, just at the top here, and then therefore lift up your object a little bit farther up into the air. Now, there is also gravity. Gravity exists everywhere, the force that keeps us on Earth, and it applies to our flying objects as well, where it opposes the lift, and gravity eventually becomes stronger than the lift, so what is keeping your object in the air, and in combination with the drag, because it's slowing down, it then quickly falls to the ground, which is really interesting. So if you have an airplane that is constructed using aerodynamics, so thinking of the science behind what makes an object fly, it is what allows your object to stay flying for longer and basically counters the effects of drag and gravity, keeping it in the air longer, which is pretty cool, right? And something that I really, really love about this experiment and this activity is simply how easy it is to construct and experiment as you go. Because I think to myself, I think an airplane or something that flies has to have wings, right? Because everything that flies just so seems to have wings. Now, that may be the case, but their wings of both an airplane, a bird, anything like that work just as much the same as a aerodynamic flying object here, where the wings act almost as the circles here do, and it allows the bird or object to lift and fly forward to oppose the air resistance that's pushing it back and the gravity that's pulling it down, which is pretty interesting. But that will be everything for today's challenge and activity. I hope you guys have an amazing, amazing luck with your neat designs here. And I know that you will all do absolutely amazingly. Just put your mind to it and have a little bit of patience to see what works and what doesn't. I promise it is worth it and you will learn a lot. But thank you all very much for joining me today. I had tons of fun as always, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day. Have a good one, everyone.